This story is titled, My Brother Stalked My Wife for Months and My Mom Helped Him. When we moved away, he broke into our house to take her. Hi everyone, before we dive in, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and make sure you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. I've been holding this in for a long time, and I feel like if I don't let it out, I'm gonna explode. My wife, Emily, 29 female, and I, 30 male, have been married for just over a year now. We met on a dating app, of all places, and honestly, I never thought something real would come out of it, but we hit it off immediately. She was smart, kind, funny, and just easy to talk to. It didn't take long for me to realize she was the one. We dated for 9 months before I proposed, and 3 months after that, we tied the knot. Yeah, it was fast. Some people thought we were rushing it, but I don't regret it for a second. Emily's the best thing that ever happened to me. She's a high school art teacher, super talented and creative. She's been through a lot in her life, though. Her parents died in a car accident when she was 20, so she's been on her own ever since. That kind of independence and resilience really drew me to her. She's the type of person who doesn't let life's challenges break her. She just keeps going, no matter how hard it gets. I admired that about her from the start. As for me, my life hasn't exactly been a walk in the park either. My family is complicated, to put it lightly. My mom, Janet, 54 female, raised me. My older sister, Chloe, 32 female, and my younger brother, Liam, 28 male, all on her own after my dad abandoned us when I was 10. He didn't die or anything noble like that. He literally just left. One day, he said he had a business opportunity out of state, packed a bag, and walked out the door. That was the last we ever saw or heard from him. Mom tried to put on a brave face, but I think it broke her. And when she broke, she leaned hard on Liam. Liam was 8 at the time, and Mom treated him like a fragile little prince who needed constant care. She used to say, "He's too young to understand why his dad left. He needs more attention." And that more attention never stopped. Chloe and I were left to fend for ourselves. But Liam? Oh, he got everything handed to him. If he wanted something, Mom would find a way to make it happen. The newest game console, the best sneakers, you name it, Liam got it. Meanwhile, I was working part-time by the time I turned 15 just to buy basic school supplies. Chloe and I used to joke about it, calling Liam the golden boy. But the truth was, it wasn't funny. It was frustrating. Liam grew up spoiled and entitled, and Mom only made it worse. She babied him through everything. When he dropped out of community college after one semester because he said it wasn't his thing, Mom didn't even bat an eye. She just shrugged and handed him the family laundromat to manage. And by manage, I mean he barely showed up while Mom ran the business herself. Meanwhile, I worked my ass off to get where I am today. I put myself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, got a degree in software development, and landed a solid job at a tech company. You'd think Mom would be proud of me for that, right? Nope. To her, I just got lucky with computers or whatever. Liam, on the other hand, was the real success in her eyes because he was running a business. Yeah, okay. Despite all that, I still tried to maintain a decent relationship with my family. It wasn't easy, but I figured they were still my family at the end of the day. When Emily and I got married, she suggested staying close to them. She thought it would be good for us to have a support system nearby, especially since she didn't have any family of her own. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but I went along with it because it meant a lot to her. We bought a little house a few minutes away from Mom's place. At first, I thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Mom seemed to really like Emily. She kept telling me how lucky I was to have such a sweet, well-mannered wife. Chloe was also great. She's always been the normal one in the family. But Liam was another story. Liam had this way of making everything about him. If Emily complimented something about the laundromat, like the cafe Mom had set up in the corner, Liam would act like it was his idea, even though everyone knew Mom was the one keeping the place afloat. Mom, of course, encouraged all of this. She'd say things like, "Liam just loves spending time with you two. It's nice to see him getting along with your wife." Anyway, things seemed fine for a while. Emily and I were settling into married life, and I was adjusting to having my family so close. I thought I had everything under control. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when it comes to my family, things are never as simple as they seem. Looking back now, I feel like I should have caught on sooner. At first, it seemed harmless. Liam was being overly friendly to Emily, but I figured he was just trying to bond with her since she was new to the family. He'd show up at our place randomly with coffee or snacks, saying he just happened to be nearby. Or he'd bring over a tool he thought we might need for the house, like a wrench or a screwdriver, even if we didn't ask for help. He even bought her an expensive necklace once. It was a little much, but I brushed it off. I mean, he was my brother. Why would I suspect anything weird? Emily didn't say much about it either, at least not at first. She'd smile and thank him whenever he brought something, but I could tell she wasn't entirely comfortable. She's polite to a fault, always worried about offending people, so I figured she was just being nice. Honestly, I thought Liam was just socially awkward and trying too hard to be helpful. I even joked with her once that Liam probably needed to learn how to take a hint. The thing is, Liam wasn't just stopping by every now and then. He was doing it a lot, like multiple times a week. At one point, I remember joking to Emily, "We might as well give him a spare key at this rate." She laughed, but there was something in her eyes that didn't sit right with me. I shrugged it off because, again, I thought I was overthinking things. Then came Liam's birthday dinner. Mom made a huge deal out of it, like she always does for him. She decorated the house with balloons, baked his favorite cake, and even made a bunch of dishes she knew he liked. It was a typical Liam is the center of the universe event, which was nothing new for our family. Emily and I went because, well, we couldn't not go. Plus, I thought it might be nice to have a normal family gathering for once. The dinner started out fine. We sat around the table, everyone chatting about random stuff. Liam was in his usual smug mood, cracking jokes and making sure the conversation revolved around him. At one point, Mom started talking about how special Liam was and how he just needed the right person in his life to help him settle down. Then she turned to Emily and said, "Someone like you, sweetie, you'd be perfect for him." I froze. Emily looked completely uncomfortable, but before she could respond, Liam chimed in with a grin and said, "Yeah, Emily, you and I would have been perfect together. Too bad Eric got to you first." Everyone laughed like it was just a harmless joke, but I felt my stomach twist. I forced a laugh, trying to play it cool, but inside, I was pissed. Who says something like that to their brother's wife? I wanted to call him out right then and there, but I didn't want to ruin the birthday. I figured I'd talk to him about it later. On the drive home, Emily was quiet. I asked her if everything was okay, and she just nodded and said she was tired. I didn't push her, but I couldn't stop replaying the conversation in my head. The way Liam looked at her when he made that comment, it wasn't just a joke. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on. A few days later, Emily finally opened up. She waited until we were sitting on the couch after dinner, just the two of us. She started by saying she didn't want to cause any drama, but she felt like I needed to know what was going on. That's when she told me about the way Liam had been acting around her. Apparently, it wasn't just the frequent visits or the random gifts. He was finding excuses to get closer to her, standing too close, brushing against her arm, even trying to hold her hand once when he was thanking her for something. He made comments that were way too personal, like telling her she had the most beautiful eyes, or that she deserved better than someone who worked so much, clearly referring to me. She said she'd been trying to brush it off, but after the birthday dinner, it all started to feel too much. She didn't know how to handle it anymore. I asked Emily why she hadn't told me earlier, and she said she didn't want to create tension in the family. She knew how Mom always sided with Liam and didn't want to make things worse. Plus, she said she wasn't sure if I'd take it seriously. That part stung. The fact that she doubted whether I'd have her back hurt more than anything Liam had done. I reassured her that I believed her completely and that I wasn't going to let this slide. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything she told me, along with all the little moments I'd ignored or dismissed. Liam showing up uninvited, finding excuses to talk to Emily, going out of his way to do things for her. It was all adding up now. This wasn't just Liam being friendly or awkward. This was something else entirely. The next day, I started paying closer attention. I didn't say anything to Liam right away because I wanted to see how he acted when he didn't think I was watching. Sure enough, he showed up at our house that afternoon with some random excuse about needing to borrow a tool. He barely acknowledged me and went straight to Emily, handing her a coffee and saying, "I figured you could use a pick-me-up." She looked uncomfortable, but she thanked him politely. I clenched my jaw, trying not to lose it right there. After he left, I told Emily I was going to talk to him. She asked me not to, at least not yet. She said she didn't want to escalate things until we had a better plan. I agreed, but it wasn't easy. Every time I saw Liam after that, I wanted to punch him in the face. I hated the way he acted like everything was normal, like he wasn't making my wife uncomfortable every chance he got. At this point, I knew things couldn't keep going like this. Something had to give. But after a week of watching him pull the same stunts, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I decided to confront him. I called him over to my house, making it sound like I needed help with something. When he showed up, I wasted no time. I told him I knew about the way he'd been acting around Emily, standing too close, making weird comments, trying to get her alone. At first, he just stared at me, like he couldn't believe I'd actually called him out. Then he laughed, full-on laughed, like I just told the funniest joke in the world. "You're being paranoid, man," he said, shaking his head. Emily's like a sister to me. I'd never do anything weird. You're just jealous because I get along with her better than you do. That last part hit a nerve, but I held my ground. I told him to knock it off, that his behavior was making Emily uncomfortable, and if he didn't stop, we were going to have a serious problem. He shrugged, said I was blowing things out of proportion, and left without another word. After that, I felt even worse. Liam didn't take me seriously at all. If anything, he probably thought it was funny that I was upset. I told Emily about the conversation, and while she appreciated me standing up for her, she wasn't surprised by his reaction. He's not going to change, she said. And unfortunately, she was right. After that confrontation with Liam, I knew things had to change. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. And honestly, the way he laughed it off made my blood boil. I'd been holding back, trying to keep things peaceful, but at that point, I was done. I knew we couldn't keep living so close to him and Mom. Emily deserved better than feeling trapped in her own home, and I couldn't keep putting her in situations where she had to deal with Liam's nonsense. That's when the idea of moving came up. The timing was almost eerie. Just as all this was going down, I got a job offer in Kansas City. It wasn't something I'd been actively looking for, but an old college buddy who works at the company had mentioned my name to his boss. A week later, I got the call. They wanted someone with my skill set and were offering a decent bump in pay. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to uproot everything, but after that birthday dinner and Liam's increasingly creepy behavior, it felt like a sign. Emily and I talked about it one night. I told her about the offer and how it would mean moving out of state. She immediately looked relieved. "Do you think we can just leave like that?" she asked, her voice a mix of hope and hesitation. I knew what she meant. Mom wasn't exactly going to take the news well. And Liam, well, I didn't even want to imagine his reaction. But I told her, "We don't owe them anything, Em. We need to do what's best for us." We spent the next few weeks planning the move. I told work I was accepting the offer, gave my notice at my old job, and started house hunting in Kansas City. Emily was amazing through all of it. She scoured listings, set up virtual tours, and even packed most of our stuff while I handled the work logistics. We didn't tell anyone except Chloe. She'd always been the supportive one in the family, and I trusted her not to spill the beans. When I told Mom we were moving, she acted like I just told her the world was ending. "What do you mean you're moving?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "What about the family? You're going to leave us? What about Liam? He'll be heartbroken." That last part made me roll my eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "Mom, we need to do what's right for us," I said firmly. "This is a good opportunity for my career, and it's what Emily and I want." She didn't take it well. She accused me of abandoning the family and said Emily must have been the one pushing me to leave. Typical mom behavior, always blaming someone else when things didn't go her way. I didn't bother arguing with her. There was no point. Once Mom decided something, it was impossible to change her mind. Liam, thankfully, hadn't caught wind of our plans yet. I wanted to keep it that way. The day we left was bittersweet. Chloe came over to help us load the moving truck, and it hit me that I wouldn't be seeing her as often. She hugged me tight and said, "You're doing the right thing. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty about it." Emily hugged her too, thanking her for being so supportive. Chloe promised to keep our address a secret, and I believed her. She'd seen enough of Liam's behavior to know why we needed to leave. The drive to Kansas City was long but surprisingly peaceful. Emily and I talked about all the things we wanted to do once we settled in. Explore the city, find new hobbies, maybe even adopt a dog. For the first time in weeks, Emily seemed genuinely happy. She even joked about decorating the new house with all the art supplies she'd been hoarding. It felt like a fresh start, and I couldn't wait to put all the family drama behind us. We arrived at the new house late in the evening. It wasn't anything fancy, just a cozy 2-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, but it felt like a mansion compared to the stress we'd been living in. The next few days were a blur of unpacking boxes, setting up furniture, and getting to know the area. Emily took the lead on decorating, and I have to say she did an amazing job. By the end of the week, it actually felt like home. Emily started to relax too. She wasn't jumping at every little noise anymore, and she even started sleeping better. One night, as we were sitting on the couch watching a movie, she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "I feel safe here." Those words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized just how much she'd been holding in until that moment. I wrapped my arm around her and promised her that no one would take this peace away from us. But as much as I tried to focus on our new life, I couldn't completely shake the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Liam. I hadn't told him we were moving, and I hadn't heard from him since we left. Part of me was relieved, but another part of me wondered how long that would last. Mom hadn't called either, which was unusual. I figured she was still stewing about our betrayal. Emily and I agreed not to let it bother us, though. We were determined to make this move work and build a life for ourselves, away from the toxic family dynamics that had been dragging us down. For now, at least, it feels like we are in control, and that's enough for now. I'll update you when Liam finds out about our moving, or if anything comes up. Update 1. Hey everyone. It's been crazy and I figured it was time for an update. I wish I could say everything's been smooth sailing since our move to Kansas City, but unfortunately that's not the case. Things have taken a turn, and I'm struggling to wrap my head around just how far this has gone. So, we've been here for a few weeks, and for the most part, it felt like a fresh start. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd finally left all that drama behind. Boy, was I wrong. It started a few days ago when Emily noticed someone outside. She was in the kitchen unpacking some dishes when she saw Liam pacing in front of our house. At first, she thought maybe it was just someone who looked like him. It didn't make sense for him to know where we lived. But then he rang the doorbell, over and over. He had a bouquet of roses in his hand, and he was calling out, "Emily, I just want to talk." When she told me, I couldn't believe it. I mean, how did he even find us? We didn't tell him or Mom where we moved. The only person who knew was Chloe, and I trusted her completely. But there he was, standing outside our house like some kind of creepy stalker. I told Emily to stay put and not open the door while I called the police. By the time they arrived, Liam was gone. They said there wasn't much they could do unless he came back or made a direct threat, which was frustrating but not surprising. Later that night, I called Chloe to figure out how the hell Liam had found us. At first, she was confused, swearing up and down that she hadn't told anyone. But as we kept talking, she hesitated. Then she broke down and told me the truth. Liam had stolen a copy of our house key from her while helping us pack. He must have found our address on a piece of mail or one of the moving boxes and decided to keep it to himself. Chloe was absolutely mortified. She apologized over and over, saying she didn't realize what he'd done until now. She felt guilty for not keeping a closer eye on him, but honestly, I couldn't blame her. This was entirely on Liam. He crossed a line and I was furious. But Chloe didn't stop there. She also told me some other things that left me sick to my stomach. Apparently, Liam's obsession with Emily ran even deeper than I thought. He'd been secretly taking photos of her during family gatherings, some of which were downright creepy. Chloe said she'd seen pictures of Emily at our old house, sitting on the couch or reading a book, completely unaware that Liam was taking them. Worse, he'd been recording her voice during conversations and stitching together long audio files that he'd listened to on repeat. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just harmless flirting or boundary pushing anymore. This was full-blown stalking. How had I let it get this far? I knew Liam had issues, but I never imagined he was capable of something like this. I kept replaying all the times I brushed off his behavior, convincing myself it wasn't a big deal. But now, with everything Chloe had told me, it was clear that Liam was dangerous. I couldn't afford to let my guard down anymore. Emily was shaken when I told her what Chloe said, but she wasn't surprised. I had a feeling there was more to it, she admitted. The way he looked at me, the things he said, it always felt off. She thanked me for taking her seriously and standing up for her. But I could tell this whole thing was wearing on her. She started jumping at every little noise, checking the locks on the doors multiple times before bed. It broke my heart to see her like that. The next day, we found more proof that Liam had been watching us. Emily was cleaning out the mailbox when she found a letter addressed to her in Liam's handwriting. It was rambling and incoherent, filled with phrases like, "You're the only one who understands me," and "I'll wait forever if I have to." It was creepy as hell, and it confirmed what I already knew. Liam wasn't going to leave us alone. I brought the letter to the police, but again, they said their hands were tied unless Liam made a direct threat or showed up again. They suggested filing for a restraining order, which we're looking into, but it's a process. In the meantime, we've installed security cameras around the house, and I've started documenting everything. Every letter, every text, every incident. I want to make sure we have as much evidence as possible if this escalates further. Mom, of course, isn't helping. When I told her what Liam had done, she immediately went into defense mode. "He's just upset," she said. "You shouldn't have moved away without telling him. He doesn't know how to handle it." She even had the nerve to blame Emily, saying, if she hadn't been so nice to him, he wouldn't have gotten the wrong idea. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nice? Emily was polite because she didn't want to cause drama, and now Mom was using that as an excuse for Liam's behavior? I told her she needed to wake up and realize that Liam wasn't just being sensitive, he was stalking my wife. Mom hung up on me after that and hasn't called back since. Emily and I are trying to stay strong, but it's hard. She's taken down all her social media accounts, and she barely goes anywhere alone. I've started working from home more often because I don't want to leave her by herself. Every time I leave the house, I find myself looking over my shoulder. half expecting to see Liam lurking nearby. It's exhausting, and it feels like no matter how far we go, we can't escape him. I don't know what's going to happen next, but one thing is clear. Liam isn't just some overgrown man-child with a crush. He's dangerous, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect Emily from him. This isn't just family drama anymore. It's a safety issue. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold. For now, we're just focusing on staying safe and trying to figure out our next steps. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. I didn't think things could get worse, but Liam has proven me wrong yet again. At this point, it feels like we're living in some kind of bad movie, except there's no off button. I'm honestly exhausted, and Emily is barely holding it together. I just need to get this all out. So here we go. The first incident happened about a week after my last post. Emily had started going back to her usual routine, trying to act like everything was normal. She didn't want to feel like a prisoner in her own home, which I completely understood. One morning, she went to her favorite art supply store. It's a little mom and pop shop about 15 minutes away, and she loves going there to browse and get inspired. She didn't notice anything unusual at first, but as she was leaving, she saw Liam's car parked across the street. At first, she thought maybe she was imagining things. She told herself it could have been someone with a similar car. But when she got into her car and started driving, he followed her. He didn't try to hide it either. He stayed just a few car lengths behind her the entire way home. She called me while she was driving, her voice shaking, and said, "I think he's following me." I told her to stay calm, drive straight home, and I'd meet her in the driveway. When she pulled in, Liam's car was nowhere in sight. He must have turned off before she got to the house, but the damage was already done. Emily was in tears, shaking so badly she could barely get out of the car. I held her for what felt like forever before helping her inside. She kept saying, "I shouldn't have gone out. I should have stayed home." I tried to tell her this wasn't her fault, that Liam was the one in the wrong, but she wasn't hearing it. We reported the incident to the police, but again, there wasn't much they could do without concrete proof that he was stalking her. They suggested we keep a log of everything and update them if it happened again. I asked about getting a GPS tracker for Emily's car, just in case we needed to prove he was following her. The officer said it was a good idea, so we ordered one that same day. The next incident was even scarier. Emily had started going to a nearby park in the mornings to clear her head and get some fresh air. She figured it was safe because it was always busy with joggers, dog walkers, and families. One morning, she went to sit by the pond, sketching in her notebook, when she heard someone call her name. She looked up, and there he was, Liam, sitting on a bench not far from her, watching her like he'd been there the whole time. Emily panicked. She grabbed her stuff and started walking back to her car, but Liam followed her. He didn't say anything, just kept walking a few steps behind her. When she got to her car, she locked the doors and drove off. He didn't try to stop her, but she said the look on his face was enough to haunt her for days. She said he looked calm, like he wasn't even doing anything wrong, like it was totally normal for him to be there. When she got home and told me, I was livid. I couldn't believe he'd found her at the park. It was like he was keeping tabs on her every move. I went straight to the police station and demanded to know why they couldn't do more. They said they understood my frustration, but reiterated that we needed more evidence to build a stronger case for harassment or stalking. I showed them the GPS tracker data from the first incident and told them about the park. They said it helped, but we still needed more. At this point, Emily was too scared to leave the house alone. She canceled her plans to go back to work, telling her boss she needed more time off. Her boss was incredibly understanding and even offered to have someone screen her mail and phone calls at work if she decided to come back. Emily was grateful, but I could tell it wasn't enough to ease her anxiety. She started having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night crying or gasping for air. It's like Liam was everywhere, even when he wasn't physically there. One night, I caught her sitting on the floor in the hallway, just staring at the front door. I asked her what she was doing, and she said, "I'm just making sure it's locked." It broke my heart to see her like this. She was always so strong, so independent, and now she was scared to be in her own home. I promised her I'd do whatever it took to keep her safe, but honestly, I was scared too. Not for myself, but for her. I didn't know what Liam was capable of anymore. We decided to make some changes around the house to help Emily feel safer. We got better locks for all the doors and windows, added motion sensor lights outside, and even installed a doorbell camera that alerts us anytime someone comes to the front door. I also set up a system where she could press a button on her phone to trigger an alarm if she ever felt unsafe. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. Mom, of course, wasn't helping. She called me a few days after the park incident to tell me I was overreacting. She said Liam was just trying to make things right, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. I told her to stay out of it, that she was enabling him and making things worse. She got defensive, saying, "He's my son. I can't just turn my back on him." I wanted to scream at her, but I hung up instead. I couldn't deal with her excuses anymore. Right now, we're just trying to take it one day at a time. Emily has started therapy to help with her anxiety, and I'm doing my best to be there for her. It's exhausting, but I know we'll get through this. Liam might think he can control us, but he's wrong. We're not going to let him win. I'll update again if anything else happens. Thanks to everyone who's been following this and offering advice. It means more than you know. Update 3. I'm back with another update, and I honestly don't even know where to start. Everything feels like a nightmare I can't wake up from. I thought things were bad before, but what happened recently took everything to another level. I'm still trying to process it all, so bear with me. It started out like any other evening. We had dinner, watched a little TV, and went to bed around 10. As always, we double-checked the locks and made sure the alarm system was armed. I don't know why, but I felt uneasy as we were getting ready for bed. I even joked to Emily, maybe I'm becoming paranoid, because I kept glancing at the front door. She just gave me a small smile and said, "Better paranoid than careless." I don't know how long we'd been asleep when it happened. I woke up to Emily screaming, a sound that made my blood run cold. I shot up in bed, disoriented, trying to figure out what was going on. That's when I saw him. Liam. He was sitting in a chair he must have dragged in from the kitchen, positioned right next to Emily's side of the bed. He was holding her hand, whispering something I couldn't make out. The look on her face was pure terror. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. How the hell did he get in? The doors were locked, the windows were shut, everything was secure. But there he was, as if none of that mattered. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I jumped out of bed and lunged at him, knocking the chair over and sending him sprawling to the floor. He tried to fight back, but I wasn't holding back this time. I pinned him down and shouted for Emily to call 911. As I held him there, he kept muttering the same thing over and over. "She belongs with me. You don't deserve her." His voice was calm, almost robotic, like he really believed what he was saying. It was one of the creepiest moments of my life. I don't know how long it took for the police to arrive. Probably only a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity. When they finally showed up, they pulled Liam off the floor, handcuffed him, and started asking questions. That's when we learned how he got in. He'd been watching us for weeks, figuring out our routines and waiting for the perfect time. He managed to find a way to cut us from electricity before he got in, so the alarms didn't go on. The police also found a duffel bag he'd brought with him. Inside were duct tape, zip ties, a bottle of chloroform, and, this is the part that still makes me sick, a wedding ring. He'd also taken a framed photo of Emily from our living room and had it in the bag like some kind of trophy. The whole thing was beyond disturbing. As they were taking him away, Liam looked me dead in the eye and said, "This isn't over." I don't know if it was meant to scare me or if he actually believed he'd get another chance, but it sent a chill down my spine. Emily, meanwhile, was sitting on the floor, shaking and crying. I've never seen her so scared. It broke my heart. The next few hours were a blur of police reports, questions, and trying to comfort Emily. She kept asking, "How did it get this far? How could he do this?" And honestly, I didn't have any answers. I felt like I'd failed her, like I should have done more to protect her. The police assured us that Liam would be held without bail due to the nature of the incident, but that wasn't much comfort in the moment. The aftermath has been a lot. Emily hasn't been able to sleep since that night. She flinches at every little noise and keeps saying she feels like he's still watching her, even though we know he's in custody. Her therapist has been trying to help, but this kind of trauma doesn't just go away overnight. She's even talked about wanting to move again because she can't stand the thought of staying in this house after what happened. I don't blame her. Every time I walk into the bedroom, I see that chair lying on the floor and think about how close we came to something far worse. I've also had to deal with Mom, who, unsurprisingly, is in full denial mode. When I called to tell her what happened, she actually tried to defend Liam. "He's not a bad person," she said. "He's just confused and needs help." Confused? The guy broke into my house in the middle of the night with duct tape and chloroform. I told her she needed to wake up and realize that Liam wasn't just her baby boy anymore. He was dangerous. She got upset and accused me of trying to ruin his life. At that point, I hung up. I can't keep wasting my energy on her excuses. We're pressing charges, of course. The police seem to be taking this seriously, especially with all the evidence they found in Liam's bag. They've assured us that he'll face significant jail time, but the thought of him being out there someday still terrifies me. I've also hired a lawyer who specializes in cases like this to make sure everything is handled properly. I want to make sure Liam pays for what he's done, not just to us, but to Emily, specifically. She didn't deserve any of this. Right now, Emily has started sleeping in the guest room because she can't bring herself to go back into the bedroom. I've been sleeping on the couch nearby so she doesn't feel alone. We're looking into moving again, even though the thought of packing everything up and starting over is exhausting. But if it helps Emily feel safe, I'll do it without hesitation. I still can't believe this is my life. A year ago, I was just a guy who married the love of his life and wanted to build a future together. Now I'm dealing with restraining orders, police reports, and a brother who's turned into a full-blown stalker. It's surreal, and not in a good way. Anyway, I'll leave it here for now. Thanks to everyone who's been following this and offering support. It's been a lifeline during all of this. I'll update again once we know more about the charges and what's going to happen next. For now, we're just focusing on staying safe and getting through each day. Issue Update 4. Hey everyone, this will probably be my last update. A lot has happened, and honestly, we just want to put this chapter behind us and move on with our lives. I can't thank you all enough for the advice and support. It's meant more than I can say. Liam's case went to court a few months after the break-in. He was charged with stalking, breaking and entering, and attempted kidnapping. The evidence was overwhelming, especially with the duffel bag, his recordings of Emily, and the creepy journal entries they found in his house. He pled guilty, and the judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison. Honestly, I wish it was longer, but at least he's out of our lives for now. Mom didn't escape this either. During the investigation, it came out that she'd been feeding Liam information about Emily's routine and encouraging him to win her over. She even knew about his plans. It also came out that Liam had stalked other women before Emily. Mom had paid them off to stay quiet, thinking marriage would fix him. The court saw it differently. She was charged as an accessory and sentenced to 3 years of probation. She's not allowed any contact with us, which is honestly the best part. As for us, we decided to stay in Kansas City, but moved to a new house across town. Emily couldn't handle staying in the old place after everything that happened, and I didn't blame her. She's still dealing with the trauma. She cut her hair short and dyed it, saying she didn't want to look like the person Liam had obsessed over. She also started wearing looser clothes, even though it breaks my heart to see her feel like she has to change herself to feel safe. Therapy is helping, though, and she's slowly starting to regain her confidence. We've cut off all contact with Mom, Liam, and most of the family. Chloe is the only one we still talk to. She's been a rock through all of this and even testified against Mom and Liam in court. The rest of the family? They still think we're overreacting, saying things like, family is family, and Liam needs support, not punishment. Yeah, no thanks. Life isn't perfect, but it's getting better. Emily's back at work part-time, and we're focusing on rebuilding our lives. I've learned a lot through all this. Mainly that blood doesn't mean you owe anyone your peace or safety. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the one you should keep. Emily and I are building our own version of family now. One built on love and respect, not toxicity and excuses. Thanks again to everyone who's been here through this mess. Your words of encouragement got us through some really dark times. Take care of yourselves, and if you're ever in a similar situation, don't wait to take action. Trust your instincts, protect your peace, and don't be afraid to walk away. Stay safe, everyone.